Going live. Good afternoon and welcome to today's session where we show you a little bit under the bonnet as some of our secret sauce of what we've been building at the Coders Guild in our journey to become an AI native organization. As always, Francesco and Alex should be in the LinkedIn comments section. So if you have any questions as we go along, please drop them in and we'll try to get to them at the end. I am on co-hosting duties again today with Crispin. Good afternoon, Crispin.
Good afternoon. Welcome again, Rob. Sorry for press ganging you into another webinar, but it's important. I think, like, you know, a lot of the things that we've been talking about recently are operational. So it's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, and it's good that we can make it in the additional parent admin that comes along with the holidays starting. But yes, fingers crossed we can make it through the whole thing without a request for crisps or extensions on time limits on screens.
Yeah, it's very much holiday mode at the moment, and so we'll. I'm glad I've got my obligatory plaid shirt on as well. It's a bit more informal this week. We'll try and keep it as calm and as chilled as possible for everyone.
Great stuff, thanks. Yeah, so a little bit about who we are. So I'm Crispin, I'm the CEO of the Coders Guild, and Rob runs operations for us. So like I said, this is kind of like an operational discussion in AI adoption. And so as a bit of history about me or how we got here. So the Coders Guild started as a grassroots initiative to train software developers in things that matter. So, and then that hobby project got out of control and became the real business. But the things that always maintained were my obsessions with how do people learn really technical things really fast, and how do we align vocational education to business benefit and business value. So those two things, I feel like have led me to this path now where all the skills that I've been building up for a decade are super useful and super valuable. And in particular for this webinar, this is a thing that Rob and I, when we're looking at the AI adoption and the evolvement, is that the right word? Or how the organization is evolving.
Yeah.
This is a thing that we talk about a lot. So a lot of the work that I was doing last year was I was working with Skills England and Alan Turing Institute and the DFE on creating the level 4 not software developer, that's mentioned before, the AI and automation apprenticeship. And in doing that, I spoke to dozens and dozens of high growth SMEs about their barriers, what they were doing, the sort of projects they wanted to do, where the business was going, what they were looking for, and Innovate did a bunch of research for us as well and collated loads of existing research in how do we make this possible. So a lot of the kind of bringing all of that research in, and now from the past 6 months or so, 6-7 months of helping businesses raise AI capability in their own team, and really like flex that domain knowledge that your existing people have of your business, and how does AI fit into that as an adoption process. So the thing I'm working on at the moment, which I have strong-armed into this presentation, this webinar, because I'm really excited about it, is I've got this matrix for understanding a team or an individual or a business's appetite and readiness and maturity in AI adoption. And this is basically on this 6-point scale. And the very, very similar things exist. I think Anthropic have one, OpenAI have one. Loads of different people have put out this thing of like, this is the linear scale of your of where you're at with AI. So it starts off where you're just kind of watching and you're not really doing anything. Then you're doing some experiments. Then you maybe adapting, and you're using tools in a more strategic or thoughtful way. Then you're starting to connect more things together. So connecting other systems into your AI driven stuff, and then then you're embedding this into your actual process, where you are constantly looking for improvements and ways in which like AI and automation, loops and agentic stuff can improve your ways of working, improve the efficiency of your business, improve the productivity, and so on. And this is our like the exciting thing that Rob and I have been talking about a lot recently, is that's where most of these things kind of stop. But we found that we are in a new step on. So we've done all of those things, and now, and this is very, very recent, we feel like the business is now at a new stage, which is AI native. This is everything that we do now starts from an AI enabled position. So it's different to having agents and loops that do bits of people's jobs. It's different from using AI in a sanctioned and policy driven, productive, collaborative way. It's another step, and this really is what this webinar is about. Is how we got to this point, and it was really from Rob and I talking about this process in particular, but loads of the other processes which now we run that are similar, which brought me to this point of like this extra level of this AI native workflows and everything coming into AI.
It'd be good to get some feedback where any of our viewers believe they are in the 6-point scale. Let us know where you are, and we can help get you towards 6, where we're currently sitting at the moment, just in 6, I'd say,
and having a lovely time with it as well. Like I certainly like looking at my job with renewed vigor and having an interesting, exciting time. There is should we jump to the next slide? So the other thing about what I'm looking at with this AI maturity is I'm also thinking about it more like a matrix, and not only plotting against that linear scale, but also this sort of maturity curve, which if you've seen some of my other stuff, I'm talking about like how people learn things. The Dunning-Kruger curve should be familiar to you, where when you start learning a new thing, it's really exciting at the beginning, and you make loads of really fast progress, and then you get to a point where you think that you're really good at everything, but then you start to realize how much there is to the whole subject, the whole area, the possibilities, and that tends to drop people down into what we call the valley of despair, where they feel really overwhelmed by everything. But the good news is that is the point when you get to the bottom, then you actually realize that these are the steps you need to take to get better and better. And so it isn't we don't want people to stay down in the valley of despair very long, and we want to help people get onto that steady incline of being more and more productive. So I'm going to do another webinar about this, because there is a lot to talk about, a lot to kind of unpack. But we're working with people at all stages of this curve, and I've got obviously AI enabled process to map your team, your department, your business on this matrix. So if you want to be in my guinea pig crew, let me know in the comments, and we'll be in touch. It's completely free. We're not charging for this. I'm just at the moment collecting data, and out of it you get a nice report about skills gap analysis of your team, and also suggested projects that you might do, and they could be rated and so on. So stop talking about that now, because actually what we're here to talk about, Rob, is the final process, the process that has evolved across this journey. So before I hand over to Rob to talk about the process as it was, where it is now, and where it's and what it can become. If I put a bit of narrative around it, or a bit of understanding around how we have always done this. So when this was a hobby project, it was a bunch of developers writing curriculum and session content for each other to be able to train each other's junior developers. So we're all developers, so all of that was done in Markdown files, and we used GitHub for version control, and everyone was super comfortable with that. So when someone did a session, they would check it out, review it, make it was good, and then check it back in to Git. So what we had in GitHub was a constantly reviewed, constantly always up to date, super current version of training. So if something changed, if a bit of practice changed, if there were better links for stuff, and so we maintained the training materials in that format. Now, when the Coders Guild became a business properly, and then we had other people in the team who were not technical people, who were not comfortable using Markdown and GitHub, we needed a new way of working, because it was really important to us that we kept, and especially as we expanded into different things, into out of software dev, into testing and DevOps, and now AI and data and security, all of these different things. We can't manage all of those with people who aren't using Git day to day in Git. So we created a new format that was where all of the stuff was held in Google Docs, which has version control, but is a bit more clunky to work with. But we still wanted to keep up that currency and everything being in that state of review. So so I think, like, now, Rob, can I hand over to you?
No, that's fine. And it hadn't really changed that much. And the platforms that we used, we brought things into Monday and had forms being filled using different form platforms and things like that. So essentially, the trainer would still do the pre-session check and then provide a feedback. And then we would, as part of the growing team, someone had to collate that information and take the suggestions from the feedback form and then put it somewhere into a workflow somewhere. And that workflow would fall into a sprint cadence, and that could then take a couple of weeks to join the sprint workflows. And then the deadline for the change could then be 2 weeks after that. So it worked. It didn't need changing until, but the problem with the process was that we would have multiple feedback forms coming in. It required manual collation and triage and then adding into the workflow. It was a slow process. It was time consuming, and it involved a lot of manual labor. But why did we need something different? So, as Crispin said, we as a business helped design the standard, the brand new standard for AI and automation level 4. So we had to create a new course and new course material. And as you'd expect, we'd want that course material to be as up to date as possible. So we would expect to iterate on each and every session. And unfortunately, or fortunately, AI is a very fast moving sector. And while the framework on which we've built the standard, the fundamentals hold true, a lot of the tools and the terminology are shifting, and those small changes need constant updating. And as I alluded to in the last slide, the old cadence with which we used to make these amendments was fine, but because of the high demand for the AI apprenticeship and the short courses, we could foresee that these courses were going to potentially run monthly. So every month there would be a new running of these sessions. So we had to speed up the pace with which it would get brought into people's workflows. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But we identified that coming down the line, there was a new process that had to be created to try and get ahead so that we could manage our workload with the smaller team. at Coders
No,
Guild.
just before you go on, like one of the things that's reminding me of is that when we were first doing this with software dev back in 2012, 2013, around that time, that was always the thing people saying, but this is moving so fast. How do you keep up? And it was moving really fast. Like the software dev, I think, that's probably the thing that has changed the most and more often than any of the others. So we had to have that. We had to have that system to stay current. But like Rob, you're absolutely right. It was fine. Every couple of months we would be changing a thing. Whereas in this situation, the AI for SME leaders course that we run, that we start a new one every 4 to 6 weeks, and I don't think any of them have not changed. Any of the sessions have remained the same, even through one iteration of the course. That all of them. Would you think that's fair?
Yeah, I mean, we were delivering the AI skills boot camps last year, and when I think about the course development that we did on that course to the material that we're delivering today, it is ancient compared to what we're doing now. The fundamentals are the same, but the tools that we're talking about are different. And if you look back on our previous sessions where we talked about migrating into Claude and the capabilities there, if we're doing it, we have to be able to teach it, and so these things are moving fast. The tools that we're referring to are changing, and the concepts such as projects and skills and routines and things, that a lot of the different platforms have different names. So these aren't necessarily core changes that we're having to make, but in order to keep current, there are tools that we need to tweak and terminology that we might just need to adjust or add in so that what we're teaching is current and that people don't feel like they're out of date as soon as they've left the session. Sorry, segue. So the inputs that we have have stayed the same. So we've taken what we've got, the transcript and the video recording that comes in through Google Meet, which is our preferred workspace tool, and that gets put into a Google Drive. I'll use the cursor to try and point to these things. No, I'll use. I'm driving for the first time this week, oh no. I'm gonna just that didn't work.
I can't
no, that's fine. That's fine. I shouldn't be allowed to drive. The forms come in via Monday, as you can see down in the bottom left-hand corner, and that drops into a different Monday boards where we collate that information. So here's where Claude, the loop, comes into effect. So we are running it in Claude Code, where it's called a routine. And in co-work, it's called a schedule, which is essentially a skill, refer back to previous sessions, which is basically a set of instructions for Claude to follow. And a routine or a scheduled event is basically, it does it on a repeating schedule. So daily, weekly, monthly, that sort of thing. So every day, a working day that we've got, Claude goes off and it checks the calendar for the events that we've taught sessions in the last 24 hours. And once it knows which events happened, it can then go off to the drive and check for the transcripts that were saved to the drive from the previous day. And then once it's got that, it goes off to the Monday boards, the feedback boards, where we've defined them in the skill, and then it pulls the sessions that are attributed to the last 24 hours. And then it brings all that together. I won't go into too much detail because it'll give away our secrets. But once we've got all that information, we're able to then generate some lovely rich data from there, which can include things like whether the session landed well with the learners, whether it overran or was the timing was a bit too short. Were there any particular topics that cause more confusion? And it gives us a bit more insight into learner engagement and our coach engagement and things like that. So a lot of information, and we've tailored our special recipe to give us the report that we want out of it. And here's where we always try to keep a human in the loop. So it generates a draft report that goes to the owner's DM, which is just a double check to make sure that the information is correct and that we want to proceed. So then the owner of the process goes into Claude and confirms that we then want to write that session intelligence and the summary report off to the individual session that is stored on Monday, and then we send the summary report into a team Slack channel so that we have that information available to everyone. So this is only possible because of the skills that we've set up and because of the connectors to these tools that we've previously set up. And we've made sure that they're compliant and that we're documenting the process so that there's transparency there. And but the routine gives us this rich data output at the end of it in multiple different formats. So the way we use that is that the daily Slack report comes in ahead of any stand-up sessions that we have. So if there's anything of particular note, then we can talk about it in stand-up or in the various meetings that we have throughout the week with the delivery team and senior leadership and that sort of thing. So it surfaces that information immediately so we can act upon it. The session directory is what we call, where it's basically our library where we keep all of our sessions linked and detailed, and so the report drops onto a particular session, and each time it's run, a new report is built, and therefore we're starting to build up a really rich picture of information. So when we're reviewing a block of learning, we can look at these particular sessions, or are doing a retro on the whole course. We can pull all of that information in, and we're building up a greater picture that we can then use to make the product better. So now there's another human step that we can intervene with using Claude to build to take the human laborious workload and get Claude to help us speed up those tasks. So Claude can add, if it's an urgent bit of work that needs to get added to someone's workflow, it can add a sub item in the session delivery board, so in the library, or it can drop a new task into our delivery board, and so that it's minutes saved, but it does stack up over the course of a week, a month, and also it can drop in the exact content with the link to the various reports and things, so that it's not copying and pasting human having to do all this work. But one of the things that we have found is that it's amplified our reporting capabilities, and so that helps us report to the wider team and with our attendance, and we're looking for opportunities to use this data in the future.
Cool. And I think, I think it's really interesting to think about all of the different things that are happening. And I think like the important thing for people observing us talk about this, because it is like that's quite technical and it's very invested in our domain knowledge of how our business operates, what our operating model is for doing a particular thing. But if to like step back from it and look high from above, the difference is that there used to be the humans would be the trigger, the humans would be the review, the humans would set the actions, the humans would do the checks, and it was always thought of as like if this happens, do this thing. If this, then that. So we're building automations into that, and we have been for a long time. And building bits of AI into that process, we have been doing for a long time. The shift, and this is the AI native bit, the shift is that we can reimagine that entire process that one process of keeping our session data, our training materials absolutely up to date, and then evolve that to a new level. So now we're not looking for triggers. Like Rob said, there are automated things that happen that are looking for triggers. A new transcript has been generated from a session. A new form has been submitted. Hold this here, and then we're going to do something with it later. It opens up such a difference in our operating model of it's no longer where are we looking for little bottleneck inefficiencies to correct. It is where can this take us to? So now, like it's as if we've got like observers on every step of the journey, and there's a lot more under the hood that I think that it's possible for us to explain without actually boring everyone to death. But like literally, Rob and I could talk about this forever and find another little thing or another thing. But there's great implications here, like, or extra things we can do for safeguarding flags, or like if people seem disengaged, we can anonymize those things, so we're not watching our learners. But learner ID 361 seemed more disengaged because they weren't involved in the transcript than usual. We haven't done any of this stuff yet because there's a bit more governance and stuff that we're going to it. But the possibilities in that shift of, and I think the way that we were talking about the shift actually a couple of weeks back was, you go back a decade, Google Workspace was the center of our tools, and then other things fed into it. So, like Airtable was maybe fed into stuff we were doing in Google Workspace. And then the next stage was that like Asana or Trello or Monday.com or some sort of task management thing was the center of our operations. Whereas now it's Claude. So now Claude is the center, and all of these things, Google Workspace is periphery to our central thing. And I think that's the shift. I think that's what made us start thinking about AI native as the thing. So when we've got a workflow, if you think about Rob's diagram of that, it is Claude in the middle and loads of stuff coming in and out of Claude. So that's a visualization of what's actually happening, which is, if we showed you the actual diagram, we just like, you just exit the webinar straight away. I think it would be way too complex. But I think like that was the point that I really wanted to make.
Yeah, and I think the key, reflecting on what you've just said, is that a lot of these tools independently, we were never really 100% happy with, and we couldn't quite get them to work the way we wanted to. But we've put Claude at the center, and it's kind of like molded to the problems with the platforms that we were using, and Claude has glued it all together and made the platforms much more usable.
Yeah, and I think and it's freed us up, because I have always had, this is like my constant thing that I bore everyone with, about how I'm so against when software starts telling people how to do their job or how to work. And that's always with the SaaS stuff that we've been using for for the past few years. Loads of that stuff, you get to a point whereby, you've got to kind of do it this way because that's the way that software works. Whereas this is really freeing in that we are actually able to really think about like different ways of working based on what we actually want to do rather than what the software wants us to do.
Great. Right. Sorry, I have waffled too much on my section and left us no time for questions. On the QR code, we've got a link. I notice Francesca's also shared a Calendly link to book in that assessment as well. We do have one question, if you're happy to field it.
I'm laughing as it's a question from my wife. But aren't you worried you handed your competitors the blueprint? No, I mean, the thing is, I have always worked on the assumption that what we do should be copied, and to be honest, like I'm often surprised that people don't copy the stuff that we're doing, like the method of keeping the sessions as up to date as possible. I've been super vocal about that. I've spoken at conferences about it, and I have done blog posts and stuff about it. So I'm expecting people to not to copy it because it's brilliant. It's more like, this is a good idea and you could do more with it. So I would want other training providers to copy that method and to do more with what they have. I don't want us to be the only people training businesses on how to use AI. I do want to be the best at it, though.
Yeah, that's a noble goal. Right, we have overshot. Upcoming webinars, we're having August off from doing webinars. It would be great if anyone rewatching on LinkedIn or YouTube could drop us a comment as to what you'd like to see us cover. We're planning on coming back with some Claude design sessions and Claude Code, but if you'd like us to cover more introductory stuff, then please let us know. I think we might ask some questions in a few LinkedIn posts just to see if we can make sure we're tailoring the webinars to what people want. The link to our webinars is up on the board, and I think that's about it.
Yeah, great. Have a great summer.
Thank you very much.
See you on the other side.
Cheers.